Hello, and welcome to another episode of For the Love of Sports. My name is Michael Rasile, and this is a show where we get to talk about sports, we get to talk about business, and we get to talk about everything in between. Wherever you're listening, however you're listening, you know exactly what to do. 5-star review, and say something nice about me on Apple. 5-star review on Spotify. Like and smash that like and subscribe button over on YouTube. But more importantly, today, my incredible guest, I have Jack Adler. He's the founder of Out2Win. He's currently a student at Syracuse University. Jack, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing well, man. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Pleasure. Is it University of Syracuse or Syracuse University?
Syracuse University,
Okay.
SU.
Cool. I thought I had that right. Love the flag in the background as well. Very
Thank you.
excited to get to chat with you, Jack. Obviously, you're a business owner. You're doing some cool stuff in the NIL space. Want to learn more about it. You're still in college. While you're doing all this stuff, you built this business while in college. Absolutely incredible. Love to hear about all of it. But, Jack, the first question I have for everybody on the For the Love of Sports podcast is, why do you love sports so much?
I don't even know. That's a deep question. And it's one that hits me really deep because it's kind of my entire life. Like if I'm not working on my sports business, I'm watching sports or I'm playing sports, something in between. So, uh, I don't know why does it have to be so damn fun? It's just like it gives you this purpose in all different ways. Um, that honestly for me has I like sports has embodied like my competitive nature, my personality. It's been like a part of my identity for since I can remember. Uh, so I can't give like a distinct one sentence answer. I just don't know. I just love it. It just makes life better. I guess that's the answer.
Couldn't agree more, man. I think it's I am the exact same way. If I'm not working at my job, which is dealing in the sports
Of
betting
course,
space,
yeah,
I'm here on the podcast where I'm talking to people about sports business, or I'm upstairs watching sports. Like that's all I
yeah.
got. Or I'm with my buddies and we're probably drinking beer and watching sports. That's like the
And,
only thing that turned out different. But I couldn't agree with you
yeah.
more, man. It's just always been there. It's been the one constant in my life as well, and I'm glad I'm not the only one. So it's happy to hear it, man. But you talked about it already. Your sports business, working on your sports business. You've started Out2Win, which is really big in the NIL space. So at first, let's start with the NIL discussion, then we'll move down kind of the ladder from there. Talk to me a little bit about NIL. You're in college. You are seeing college. You're friends with college athletes. Where did you finally get this idea of, holy shit, now they can actually make money on their name? That's so cool. Good for them. What did you see boots on the ground when all of this stuff was enacted and some of your friends were able to start making some money?
Yeah, I mean, I really was involved in it since day one, because of my, I guess, just awareness that I had feet on the ground, so I had a really unique perspective compared to the rest of the sports industry. And I guess to talk a little bit about how I actually did enter the space, I had the opportunity to intern for a sports marketing agency going into my junior year of college. So it was the summer of 2021 when those laws were actually passed. Um, so literally day in, day out, I was forming brand partnerships, at least helping form them as an intern for the likes of Tyreek Hill, De'Aaron Fox, some really cool big names in the sports industry. Um, was getting that experience to see what goes into a brand partnership, and happened to be that the name, image, and likeness laws were passed on July 1st, a few weeks into my internship. And as I was getting the hang of this whole brand partnership game, I went into work and I was like, hey, ask my bosses, how are these laws going to impact this business specifically and really just the overall industry of athlete marketing? And the response was, well, we'll now start targeting the top college basketball, college football recruits, but the rest of the 500,000 student athletes, um, anyone not in that top 99.99%, I don't really know like what's going to transpire with that side of the industry. It seems like it's a market open for the taking. And for me, I have an entrepreneurial background. I've worked on two, three other businesses in the past leading up to that moment, and a light bulb went off where I was like, all right, like I'm gonna make something out of this. So literally that day, I went back and I started a Google Doc that was uh, NIL agency, and I didn't even know what that meant. I just knew I was gonna have to make something out of it. Um, so what I did was I really just began doing kind of research into first what athletes knew about this, and then next what brands knew. So I started talking to a lot of athletes just from being a student there. I had relationships with current athletes, and no one knew what the hell was going on. It was like I'm hopeless. It was not hopeless. I'm helpless. I'm confused. um, where do I start? And I was like, well, I did do this over the summer. I have a slight idea of how to make a brand partnership come to life. So let me try it out. Let me try and help you. And from working with just a few athletes to begin, I started realizing I kind of had the ability to make stuff happen. And from word of mouth, my name started getting passed around to other athletes around Syracuse, and naturally a company was formed. Brought in other people to help on the brand partnerships end, to really try and build a brand around what we were doing, knowing that we were the first college students to represent college athletes. Really tried to build a story around that, and get some press. And what ended up happening was a couple months into all this, we're making brand partnerships happen. The NIL space is just getting lifted off the ground. And so many of these partnerships were the same exact thing. It was like a brand partnering with an athlete, the athlete's holding up the product, thumbs up, smiling, saying, I'm excited to announce my partnership with blank. It was a very obvious quick money grab, that was capturing the attention of no one and being a part of the target market that a lot of these brands were actually trying to target themselves. I realized, all right, this isn't capturing my attention, and I know pretty damn well it's not capturing anyone's. So how can we change this? How can we step in and provide value not only on the actual facilitation of partnerships, but on the execution of them? And that's really where Out2Win Sports was started, as not only the facilitator of content, but the facilitator of partnerships, but the
Mhm.
execution of the content behind it. Where I hired an in-house production team, in-house creative team, and we continued facilitating these partnerships, but focused a lot on how we could not make as many happen as fast as possible, but make the best ones happen,
Mhm.
and leave the brand happy, leave the athlete happy, and allow them to get a lot more out of it than they were to begin with. So that's really where this entire idea stemmed from, was from really just having my feet in the industry, and seeing and evaluating where I could provide the most value.
Right place, right time, man. Right, like you're
Literally.
able to learn from the agency that you were at. You saw that this major, literal groundbreaking law. And it's so funny now, right? We just say NIL, and we kind of, especially people in the business a little bit,
Yeah,
it's it's NIL. It's not a big deal. Has it even been 2 years yet? I think July it's 2 years. Like it's
yeah, one and a
barely,
half.
it's barely like actually been enacted fully, and we're starting to see the ramifications on the highest level of college football. I'm a big college football fan, so seeing, oh, this is, the Jaden Rashada deal, obviously. That's just a case study. I'm excited to read that one. That 30 for 30 is
Yeah,
going to be nuts, right? But, like, just understanding that nobody had any idea. Like, the understanding was no one had any understanding. It was just kind of the NCAA was just like, okay, you guys can make money now using your name. And it was just kind
yeah.
of a wild west right out of the gate. I guess being, as you said, I want to take it back a step before we really dive into Out to Win a little bit more. With the NIL aspect of it, what, like, as you said, some of these athletes were hopeless, helpless, whatever word you want to use, right? And it's totally true, and it's not their fault because there was no guidance given. Did
Yeah.
you see any type of education coming out? Did you see anything, especially early on, just to help these athletes in some way, shape, or form prior to you at least even stepping in and saying, I'll make some deals for you? Were some of these athletes still confused on what they were even allowed to do at that point?
It's honestly sad, how little education has actually been. And I speak from the relationships I've built with athletes, and I'm always asking, so like, how are they helping here? How are they helping there? And it seems like a lot of schools right now, are really looking to check a box.
Yep.
All right, we did education, like have athletes sit in a room for 30 minutes and tell them, all right, these are the rules. This is what you can do. And there's a lot of transformation needed in this industry to just help athletes, provide them with the resources to at least be educated in what this all is. And it's really not up to par yet. And of course, we're still early on in the industry, but I'm a huge advocate for, uh, getting schools to provide those resources themselves. It shouldn't be left on, someone like me who is, uh, navigating through this, of course, as is everyone. But to have student athletes that aren't even necessarily sure like what they can and can't do yet, that's on the school. That's
Mm-hmm.
something that they're supposed to implement, more than just checking a box, but actually offering personalized assistance to make sure that each and every athlete, is fully aware of their potential in this new legislation.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a really good way of looking at it. And understandably, in the beginning, the schools had no idea either, right? Like, and
Yeah,
now at least they're doing. Some are doing obviously more than others. Some are trying a little bit harder. Some collectives are just a little bit bigger. I love that word now,
yeah.
collectives.
Well,
It's just boosters. Let's just be honest. They're just boosters. Like, come on, guys, what are we doing?
it's so funny how it has like a whole like industry term now that
Yep.
what does it even mean? I'm not really sure. But everyone just seems to kind of agree that all right, they're going to be called collectives. And I at one point we changed our like I was like, all right, Out2Win's not a sports agency. We're not a collective. We're gonna just call ourselves the NIL Accelerator. And I got some backlash like you can't just call yourselves that. Like, what does that even mean? I'm like, they did it with collective,
Yeah.
so why can't I go do it with it my own term? Um, but when it initially started, no one had any idea collectives were coming. Like
Hmm.
it started off with, oh, cool, athletes can get brand partnerships now. And slowly, honestly, it's a genius move. It's a loophole in the system, but no one expected that it was one that would come up. And I'm honestly just curious to see how that whole side of things evolves because man, is it sketchy and a lot of gray area kind of everywhere. So that'll be fun to watch.
It's definitely going to be interesting. Again, collectives for anyone out there listening that doesn't really understand. It's mostly a college football term, and I'd say some high level college basketball athletes. But essentially, the collective, quote unquote, is as I said, just the boosters have come together. They have collected a lot of money, and they're giving out these NIL deals to these quarterbacks, wide receivers, defensive ends. In the multi-million-dollar range, like it's absolutely ridiculous,
Yeah,
and they're the NIL aspect of it is so fleeting in most cases where it's like very you have to do so little to get this multi-million-dollar contract in some situations that it's just obviously hey at least before when players were getting paid they didn't have to cover it on taxes. Now they're kind of
yeah,
getting screwed because now they have to cover it on taxes. Like all this stuff's been happening, let's all be honest, at least for these high level athletes. Now the thing that NIL really opens up the door. We knew those quarterbacks were going to make money. You're telling me Tua went to Alabama, he left, and went to Alabama for $0? Come on, guys. Like let's just be honest about all this stuff. But importantly,
yeah,
with NIL is the aspect that you really hit on in the beginning was you were at that marketing agency and they pretty much said, "Oh, we work with Tyreek Hill. Like, let's be honest, we're not going to work with the sixth swimmer, on Kansas's swim team. I don't even know if Kansas is a swim team, but like that's not their goal in the industry. But you realize, hey, like there's going to be a huge swath of athletes that need help understanding where you aggregate them, you work with them, they have a big enough social following, they'll make some real legitimate money. I think that's the best part about NIL is all those kids that play basketball. You telling me Duke didn't give Zion? I'm a big Duke fan. You telling me Duke didn't give Zion a bunch of money? Like, let's be honest, guys. But at the same time, now everybody else, now the Duke softball players, now the Duke basketball, the baseball team, all these players now have the opportunity to make money. And I think it's awesome that you were able to notice that and really start to focus on it right at the beginning.
yeah. And the part about the industry that fascinated me the most wasn't all the money that was going to pour into the top five-star recruits, but
Exactly.
the fact that, yeah, that swimmer on the Kansas team, if they have a swimming team, is a great influencer to their community and one that brands could not take advantage of until this legislation was passed. So now brands have the opportunity to tap into these unbelievably niche targeted markets where there is an unbelievable amount of passion and engagement within those markets. Uh, so until this point, the women's lacrosse player at Syracuse, who has 20,000 followers on Instagram and has a really, really dedicated, loyal following, uh, a company can now take advantage of that and pay her in return for really being a marketing tool for them. So the part that always stood out to me from the jump was just the benefit to brands in this space, how they can now use one of the top influencers in the nation as a marketing tool for the company. And we've already seen early on just really like the value that college athletes have been able to add to brands from a marketing capacity.
I think it's awesome. And as you said, on that community level, I think it's important too, right? Going back to that swimmer, like now she can hold a camp. She can hold a
Yeah.
camp. It doesn't have to be run through the school. She can do it on her own or with her team. And now she can go out, and anyone that comes, all that money's going into her pocket,
Hmm.
or all the profits are going into her pocket, not all of it going to the school's pocket. The schools are doing
Yeah.
just fine. I'm not too worried about them. I think that's
Yeah.
another really important point you make too.
I think what's also cool is just how this is really, really just the beginning.
Oh yeah.
Brands are getting smarter and smarter with how to actually activate. We've been a part of helping get creative and how you can activate with college athletes. But it's not only college athletes. You're seeing the whole influencer marketing world go crazy right now. You're seeing esports influencers become a thing. This whole space is just getting started. It's not going to be long until every single brand in the world is going to be involved in some capacity in influencer slash athlete marketing So to be involved in it from the forefront is really cool, especially knowing that so many of the new student athletes that will be coming in for years to come are going to have a whole lot higher of a following. A lot of the athletes now are in a certain generation where social media kind of just became relevant as we were getting older. I can speak to that because I'm a part of that generation. Now, like every freshman that's coming into college for the next 3 years has over 10,000 followers, has in the 100,000 to 200,000 range. You're getting a lot more influencer bred athletes because that's the generation that they're growing up in. It's like you grow up on TikTok and Instagram, and if you're not posting daily, uh, you're considered a weirdo compared to now in my generation where it took a lot of courage to put yourself out there and start posting on social.
Totally agree. I think that's a really, really good point, man, because especially with these athletes now, so we're thinking NIL was, enacted, unenacted, whatever the hell. The law was repealed a couple years ago, but we all kind
Hmm.
of knew it was coming for a year prior to that. So we're talking those kids were the 18-year-old freshmen now were 15. So if they saw that and they jumped at that opportunity, they're now
Yeah,
in school or coming into school this year with the
well,
opportunity to
yeah,
say, "Whoa, okay, I've paid attention to my brand a lot more. I'm not just, first off, anybody out there, just go delete your Twitter and start over because you probably said something dumb when you were 12, right? We've all done it. It is what it is. But like in sincerity, like so many of these athletes now are coming in with the head of steam of saying, I'm going to be a brand. Now, there were some, again, the Zion Williams of the Williamsons of the world. Like some of these dudes, they were a brand whether they wanted to be or not. So they were always going to have the followers. They post 3 times in a year, you're going to have 100 million followers, right? There was always that aspect of it. But now these athletes are coming in with production teams, right? Like I know some of these high school basketball players that are going to these high level
yeah,
schools. They have 1 million followers on some of these platforms already because they've been having people take pictures and videos of them and their highlights
yeah.
since they were 12 years old. And at this point, like they are now coming in, snap their fingers. The opportunity to make a couple $1 million is not hard at this point. It's actually probably pretty easy for them.
Yeah, and I mean, you're talking about Zion Williamson, who was projected to like there was all the hype around him to be the next
Yep.
LeBron, the next Michael Jordan. I mean, yeah, that's one top guy in the nation. The last week I was scrolling through uh the freshman year class for next year and just scrolling through their social medias, and every single guy had at least 30,000
Yep.
followers on Instagram, and that's at the minimum. A lot had much more. And it's just like that was where I really took a step back and I was like, oh wow, like the next generation of NIL is going to be different because they're coming in already having prepared to become influencers as opposed to the athletes in this current generation who were thrown into the fire of becoming one, didn't know how to act, didn't know how to take advantage of it. Uh, younger athletes are now actually getting preparation and they have a couple of years to really gear themselves up for the big leagues, which is the big leagues of NIL, which is of course college sports.
Hell yeah, yeah, I love it, and I want to. You said something before that I want to start hopping into a little bit more about Out to Win and what you guys have done. You kind of gave us the backstory on how you got here, right, and what you did, and getting into the production side of things, which I think is really cool. But I want to talk a little bit about how you even said like you guys were doing these deals, and yeah, they were coming in, they were coming furious, people were making money. I don't know if anyone was happy, but the athlete was making money, right? And things were happening until you finally realize, like, this content sucks. And
Hmm.
even as you said, like, it's starting to change the entire influencing marketing space because everyone's realizing, just again, picking up this pen and saying, you guys should buy Papermate. I'm not an influencer. I have a podcast, big deal, not an influencer. But at the same time, like, just doing that's not going to move the needle in any way, shape, or form. What made you finally realize, like, okay, this is again talking about that courage that you said, for you and us, me and you, not quite the same generation, but posting every day is not the easiest thing in the world, from especially from a courage standpoint. Where did you then get the cojones, if I may, to say, okay, this is cool, but brand X, I know you're paying me a bunch of money, I also have a way better idea on how to create content, so you're gonna actually have to pay me a lot more money to allow me to execute that, and I just promise you it's going to do a lot better. Like how did that those first couple come together to actually allow you to do something like that?
I'll be honest. The way it started was not by saying you're gonna have to pay me a lot more money. It was by saying just trust me, I'm gonna make you a better campaign before even asking for any more money. I just wanted to try it out. I wanted to see how it worked. So the first time we did it was with a hot sauce brand called Karma Sauce, where we paired them up with 2 lacrosse players. And they were like, yeah, let's just post a picture of them holding up the hot sauce. Like that'd be great. And we were like, what about this? What if we had them compete against each other in a shootout, and the loser of the shootout has to try the hottest hot sauce? Like, what do you think about that? And they were like, I mean, a picture would be easier, but if you guys want to do that, like, go ahead, try it. Um, so we did that, and it's pinned on our Instagram, the video. It was our first like real high production like that, and I still think is my favorite, just because I told you how I hired this whole in-house production and creative team. Back then, it was me. I wrote the script, I produced it, I directed it, and I had no experience doing any of that. So that was complete bootstrapping, how we put that video together, and it came out so perfectly. The athletes had the best time filming it. You saw their raw emotion and reactions to trying the hot sauce, and it performed unbelievably well on social media. And from there, I was like, wait, this is a true solution to the issue that I've been seeing in the space. Went and talked to local students, videographers, creatives, and brought them in to allow me to continue working on the facilitation of deals and have a team ready to take on the whole creative process that would come along with it. And that is when, after we proved it a couple times, we started saying, all right, we'll help you work with this athlete, and then we're going to charge you a little more on top of that to go and create the content to go along with it.
That's awesome, man. Very smart on your part, and I think it's such a good way of looking at it. The interesting thing to me, I obviously want to talk about the positives. Kudos and congratulations, obviously, on doing all that by yourself, right? The in-house production team. Well, you're in-house and you're the production team, so it makes sense to me. But I think it's really interesting that you brought up like the fact that the brand even didn't really care that much. Do you see
Yeah,
that a lot? Like maybe you're being a little facetious, so I don't want to put this on the brand and say they're doing anything negative. But even as they said, they're like, all we really want you to do is take that picture. Like, if you want to do all this shit, have fun. But like, do you see that a lot from brands where they're just like, no,
I
like
do.
the easier the
I,
better? It's like, well,
I
don't you
actually
want to
do see
perform?
that. I do see that a lot, and I've been trying to do my part in honestly education because the reason that they're saying let's just do it like this is because that's what they think athlete marketing is. They think it's just having a face in front, like in association with your product. But in this age of content, uh, the older generation is not necessarily fully willing to invest in it. But that's where the power comes from. It's all power and content. So you can have a very mediocre athlete against a very high level athlete. So for example, Sean Tucker, who's the star running back at Syracuse, uh, he had an NIL deal with a brand Apex Entertainment, and I love using this as an example because their partnership with him was literally him throwing an axe at a wall, but it was just a blurry picture like mid throw of the axe. You couldn't see his face. All you saw was him from behind like throwing the axe, and it was like, I'm excited to announce my partnership with Apex. So we approached Apex and we were like, hey, it's really cool you guys are working with Sean, but like we would love to help you with the content because the post you put up with him got 200 likes when he has 10,000 followers. We could help you make much more engaging content. They said, oh, thank you, but no thank you. We're fine. We just want to associate our brand with him. That was the whole goal. Um, they followed us on social media. They watched what we were doing over the course of the next few months. They approached us that summer and said, hey, can we talk about collaboration to get some help on the content? We partnered up with them and made content for them this past semester back in October, and completely outperformed the Sean Tucker advertisement because no, it wasn't just a blurry picture. It was two basketball players competing against each other in laser tag at their event, which is pretty much like a Dave and Buster's esque type of facility that has arcade, bowling, laser tag. Let's actually show people what the experience is like being inside of that place. That's the type of content that can resonate. Um, so it's like it's been an education process to really convince brands that are run by the older generation, I'll say, because you see a lot of brands that know that get it. Like they work with content, they get athletes and influencers involved in content, but there are a lot out there that don't. So it's been on us to kind of bring them the resources to understand that this can really help them take their branding, their marketing to the next level.
That's such an awesome story. It's got to feel like such a big win for you, reaching out to this brand saying, hey, look, we can help, we can help, we can help. No, 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 we're good. Then let them
Yeah,
come to that decision, right? Let them get to the place where, like, yeah, actually, if we're going to pay them money, we might as well put a couple extra dollars into the production of the content to actually get something out of it. And clearly it works. So kudos and congratulations to you on that one, man. That's pretty awesome.
thank you. It felt really good, especially because we actually were working with a competitor at the time and ended up getting in like when they came to us asking to collaborate, we're like, oh, sorry, we're unable to. We're working with your competitor. Oh, we'll pay you double that. We'll pay you double what they're paying you. So we ended up going with them, got in a little negotiation battle, but that was a plus to the feel good story because having that all come to fruition after like approaching them at the very beginning. It was a cool full circle moment for us.
And they pay you a lot more money a few months later. I think that part's
Yup,
pretty cool.
exactly. They
I
realized
feel
the
like
value in what we were creating.
you also should be able to work with both those companies. You're a production company, man. It's not like you're the same athletes working with both those companies, unless that was the whole point of the deal. And I'll stop it there. But yeah, I think you make your money, dude. Make your
It was
money.
a big point of the deal being that they're two big time competitors right next to each other. So
Okay.
it was a big part of the deal. So
I'll give it to you. You know much more about the Syracuse landscape than I do, so I'll lean on you for that one, and I respect that. That's the way you're running your business, man. I think that's pretty cool, and I think one of my questions was going to be like how much is your business now split up between actually finding athletes these partnerships, finding the athletes the partnerships, and creating the content, and then the third bucket of just being like reaching out to the brands and being like, I see you're working with athletes and it sucks. Let us help create the content for
yeah.
you. Like those three buckets, like how much of your business is split between the three of them?
Yeah, it's cool that you understand those three buckets because a lot of people get confused when I try to explain that. Uh, and it's also tough to say how it is split up at this moment because it varies
Yeah,
by
of
the week.
course,
It
of course.
literally varies by the week. I mean, my favorite deals are the ones where we're facilitating it with the athletes that we know are the great creators, and creating the content because I mean, I would love to say, yeah, every athlete we can make into a superstar on in front of the camera, but that's really not the case. You do need a certain type of personality to get out of the athlete in these content that will allow us to make that best content. So, um, to answer your question, I would say it's kind of a split in between the three, where a lot of times a brand will, whether it's us reaching out to them or them reaching out to us asking for just help with the content, they already have athletes signed, or it's us approaching brands saying, hey, we would love to partner up with these athletes and we'll create the content. A lot of times it's athletes actually reaching out to them on their own saying, we have a brand partnership with them. Could we bring you in to help us make the content? And they introduce us to the brand and we come in and do the work from there.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, if you can have multiple lines of business like that, working with the brands, working with the athletes, they each can bring you in some capacity. Maybe the brand's like, hey, we're looking for athletes. Who do you know? Right? Okay, bang. That's a bigger deal. The athlete brings
Yeah.
you in and says, hey, looking for brands, looking for content, right? There's so many opportunities for you guys in that space. I think it's
So
it's so
many.
important that people can understand how.
I mean, hey, like we're talking about only brands right now. How about collectives that have brought us in to create
Oh
content
shit,
for
nice.
athletes, schools that have brought us in to create content for athletes, agencies that have asked us to help out with content creation for their athletes. The NIL space is just so wide in terms of how many stakeholders there currently are. And for us, like I said, the reason I didn't want to call us a sports agency or a collective is we sit at the intersection of everything. We call ourselves the NIL Accelerator because we're able to accelerate all stakeholders of NIL in any way that we can provide value through content. So we have had the chance to work with just about every single stakeholder within the NIL landscape, and that is why I refuse to call us an agency or collective. We're the accelerator, baby.
Smart on your part, man. You're accelerating NIL for all parties involved. I love it.
Yeah,
Pretty smart. I can't I can't think of a better way to say it, especially if you're working with these collectives now. So again, same thing. You're working with now some of these high level athletes, dude. Like you work with a couple of them, your name's gonna get out there in some capacity.
yeah,
Clearly, it has. Working with the schools, schools want to make sure these athletes are happy. They want to give them a reason and a way to make an extra couple bucks in some way, shape, or form, wherever that money's coming from. Not my idea.
yeah.
I think that's awesome. Like, are you allowed to tell us who you've been working with in that front?
Well, so it's funny because you mentioned back when we were talking about collectives, it's really only for football and basketball. So the collective we actually worked with was the Creighton Women's Volleyball Collective.
Hell yeah.
So ahead of the NCAA tournament, their collective was raising money for NIL purposes for the athletes, and a lot of this, just talking about collectives in general, a lot of the collectives are raising money and handing it to the athletes in the form of a check. And there's the NIL activity. It's like
Yeah.
go to the soup kitchen, which is great,
Yeah.
post on Instagram, which is great. But how about actually like taking that money and investing a little bit of it into helping them build their personal brands? So ahead of the NCAA tournament, where Creighton women's volleyball was going to be playing on ESPN and probably in front of their largest audience they ever have, uh, we worked with each one of the athletes individually to create content for them to post on their social medias. That was pretty much it was a general funny content concept that we came up with, but it was the goal of allowing them to show their personalities on their socials so that as they were getting all this exposure and people were coming to visit their accounts to learn more about them, you were getting to see a video that was pretty much introducing your personality to the world. So the goal was that people are going to come, but they're going to learn about you to the point where they want to stay and become fans. So that was a partnership that we had with a creating collective that we've continued to build out now as a solution for other collectives where we can come and create this personal branded content. That is the NIL activity. The NIL activity. It's you building your personal brand and attaching a brand to it. So we had a sponsor for the actual content concept, and but it spoke nothing about the brand. There was no ROI for the brand. It was an NIL activity for them to work on building their own personal brand on social.
I love it, dude. And one thing that's really interesting about what you've been able to do is you've explained and went down multiple avenues on not just creating content, but like the type of content, right? Your experiential content in terms of, hey, we're gonna have these two basketball players come and play, at Dave and Buster's essentially. The other, the first one that you had with the, lacrosse players, like, oh, okay, they both play lacrosse. Let's have them do a shootout, and whoever loses has to eat the hottest hot sauce kind of thing, right? Like that's also a great. And then you're looking at it from this perspective where it's, these women volleyball players and thinking of it, okay, if they're going to be on ESPN, they're going to have their biggest audience. How can we take advantage of that? So I think it's awesome that you're thinking, and I'm sure there's many other examples you can give us too of completely different content. Where do you get these? Are you just a super creative dude? Like, where are all these ideas coming from? Do you guys have just sessions where you sit in a room, hang out with Aaron Rodgers, and just think of all the ideas you can come up with? Like, where are all these ideas coming from, man?
Yeah, well, so I cannot even take any bit of credit for the ideas. None of it would have been possible without my creative team. Where yes, we do have weekly Aaron Rodgers. No, I'm kidding. But
Yeah, you're good.
we have weekly Tuesday night meetings where we sit in around a table, and I bring like I'm working on a weekly basis on talking to brands. I have a team under me that's working with me as well, and I bring opportunities to that table Tuesday night, and I say, all right, we're working with Reebok. Let's I say everyone take 1 to 2 minutes to jot down ideas for a partnership between Reebok and blank. And after those 2 minutes, we have a little football that we pass around the room and everyone shares their idea. We take those ideas and we say which ones we think were the best and we build upon those and go pitch them to the brand. Um, with that said, I I made the branding of this company Out2Win for a specific reason, and that is because athletes have a natural competitive nature within them. And as you might have noticed from all this content I'm talking about, there are these challenges involved in them. It's pretty much putting athletes out of their typical environment. So like they're off the court, they're off the field, but they're in their comfort zone of competition. So we're pitting them against each other, and motion creates emotion. So we're having them pretty much battle it out against each other, not in their typical sport, but in something that gets that emotion and authenticity out of them that is gonna garner engagement. Because who doesn't want to watch two of their favorite basketball players competing against each other in laser tag? Like it's just cool. So the big overarching theme of the content we create is how can we pit athletes against each other to get the best out of them and create content that people want to watch.
I love it, dude. That's such a great way of thinking about it, right? Keeping them comfortable in some fashion because it is still
Hmm.
competition, but getting them a little uncomfortable, putting in a situation where there might be a couple extra laughs, a couple extra giggles. We'll see what happens. I think that's a great way of
Exactly.
thinking about it, man. Shout out to you, Jack. I think that's just such, you're figuring it out. You're what, 21, 22?
22, just turned 22.
Congrats. What was your birthday?
November, so
Ooh,
not
November
too
what?
recently. 16.
Ah, dude, I'm the fifth. That would have been so cool. But
Oh,
no, shout out to you, man. I think it's so cool just putting this team together, doing all this stuff at such a young age. I mean, you're in your 20s, so whatever. But I still think it's really cool, and you deserve a lot of kudos and congratulations. Because I remember at 22, I definitely wasn't building a business. That's for sure.
yeah,
Shout out to you guys for doing what you're doing and making money while you're doing it. I think that's so
I
cool. And
appreciate it.
yeah, dude, keep kicking ass. I'm excited to continue to watch your stuff. And I think another thing that I found really interesting in our prior conversation, and I kind of want to end it here, is understanding like, hey, like, so you're an NIL accelerator. I love the branding on that. I think that's great. The way you work with athletes is awesome. How is this scalable? How are you working with more athletes, more schools? You're in school. You're at
Hmm.
Syracuse. Are you DMing athletes all over the country, all hours of the night? That just seems kind of ridiculous. Are you DMing brands? Like, how are you looking at this from a point of scale, understanding it's great now, but I want everyone, Nike, Reebok, Zion Williamson. I want all these athletes to find their way to me in some way, shape, or form. How are you guys able to do that?
Yeah, so. that's the big question, right? When it comes to entrepreneurship, when it comes to just overall building a business, it's like, all right, that's cool. We've done some cool stuff, but we're not there yet. What's next? Uh, and a lot of that is like you can't figure out what's next by sitting in the trenches all day by like making deals happen because sometimes it's hard to kind of take a step back when everything's happening so quickly, so fast in the day to day. So this past summer, I had a chance to really take a step back. Things were slowing down, and I was like, all right, we've done some really cool stuff at Syracuse, but I know we're just touching the surface. How can we go take over the nation when it comes to NIL? And a lot of that was evaluating why we were able to be so successful at Syracuse. And what I really was able to take away from kind of that reflection was we were able to do it because we're students. We had a feet on the ground at our campus. We had a pulse on what people wanted to see, what was going down, and we were able to facilitate deals because we were students. We lived next door to these athletes. We could easily have access to them. We could easily make deals happen. Uh, okay, so how can we scale that? And the answer was to me, let's involve college students at other schools. Um, so we expanded through what we called a campus representative program. I interviewed students from 15 different campuses and came away with three new campuses that we launched at this past fall: University of Southern California, University of Michigan, and University of Oklahoma. And we began building out the relationships with brands that we had at Syracuse and said, "Hey, I hope you enjoyed what we did with you at here. Let's now build this out at three other campuses where we now have students on the ground there, a production team built out on the ground there, and an athlete relations all over the place." So that was the next step that we've taken, and now since having expanded to a couple other schools in the meantime, seeing how can we really build this out and get feet on the ground at as many campuses as possible around the country. So of course, I now have a few months left until I graduate, and that puts me in a more unique position because I won't have my feet on the ground here at Syracuse, but I'll be able to take a step back and really sit at more of an overarching level across all the campuses that we'll have feet at. So that right now is the plan, and I'm really just, I mean, I'm thrilled to just have the chance to keep building it. Looking back a year and a half ago to be able to see that I'm in this position now is just it's a good feeling. So I'm hoping that I can just continue building this thing until everyone and their mom knows who Out2Win is all around the country.
I love it, dude. I can see the smile on your face. It is so cool, and you clearly you love what you do. I think that's so important, and I think it's
Yeah,
a great way of looking at it too, right? And right now, especially, like let's find other me's in other places, right? Like that's
yeah,
the easiest
literally.
way to do it. And eventually, it's going to get to the point where you're just connected with the ads at all these schools, and it's still nice
That's
to
the
have boots
goal.
on the ground, but eventually, when you're connected to all the ads, you're at the Nike basketball camps with, well, it's not Coach K and Roy Williams anymore, John Shire and Hubert
Yeah,
Davis. Like you're going to be there chumming up with them. Like that's where it's eventually going to get to at some point, where you're able to really start to know the athletic directors, the coaches.
yeah.
You're able to get the direct athlete connections through them because you've done so much great work for them. So it's
And
coming, man. Keep doing your thing.
that's where it'll get to on the athlete side. And then on the brand side, it's like, all right, where is there an Out2Win campus? Because that's where I'm going to get the best content.
Yep.
So it definitely will be beneficial for the school to have us involved with feet on the ground at that campus. And the more that we can prove that out, the more relationships, like you said, we can build in direct partnership with universities as that third party NIL accelerator that can come in and help create the content. So we're really excited to keep building, and I think we have a good chance to achieve that goal of really sitting at the forefront of the NIL space if we keep building at this pace.
I have to agree with you, man. I love what you're doing, Jack. This has absolutely been fantastic. Out2Win NIL Accelerator. I love it. Talk to us. Where can we find some your video content? Where can we find a little bit more about you guys? There's an athlete, a brand, a school out there that wants to work with you guys. Where would they go?
Yeah, for sure. So our website, out2win.net, it's spelled OUT, the number two, WIN.net. Couldn't get the .com, unfortunately. But then we have an Our Work page, which has portfolio of all the videos we created, all the brands that we've worked with, all the athletes. And I love our Work page because that really summarizes up pretty well what we've done. And then in addition to that, to keep in touch with what will be coming out, definitely follow us on Instagram, which is just at Out2Win. So that's where we put up all the videos we're creating in addition to some of our own created content that we're doing on a weekly basis with some of the athletes here. But also always feel free to reach out at jack@out2win.net. I'm more than happy to talk to anyone like-minded in the space because I just enjoy conversations like this one where I get to hear other people's stories, share mine, and see if there are potential synergies for collaboration because that's what, in my opinion, the sports space is all about. How can one help another?
I love it, man. I might have a couple introductions for you after we're done. But Jack, this has been absolutely fantastic. One more time, Jack Adler, founder of Out2Win, current student at Syracuse University,
Yes.
doing all this stuff. Jack, I sincerely appreciate your time. I appreciate the audience's time. It's the only thing we don't get more of. So thank you very much for that. But other than that, everybody, have a great rest of your night. See ya.
Thank you.